Last year, Father's Day started like any other. I was always the first to wake up. I could never get enough sleep, so I knew it would be some time before my wife of 18 years and my 18 and 17-year-old girls would wake up and join me. Every year on Mother's Day, I made my wife a nice breakfast with mimosas. For lunch, I prepared a cheese, fruit, and nut plate for her with a bottle of good white wine. For dinner, I would make her favorite dinner, steak and baked potatoes on the grill, paired with a good Cabernet Sauvignon wine. When the girls were younger, they helped with breakfast and the obligatory tagging along with their mother, but when they began to grow up, I was left to my own devices. It's okay. My wife usually reciprocated by cooking a special breakfast, although on Father's Day, I grilled steaks for dinner. So, last year on Father's Day, I waited for my wife to wake up so she could make me breakfast, which doesn't happen on any other day of the year. She doesn't know it, but I usually have a small snack when I wake up around 6. I'd starve if I didn't eat before she woke up around 9, which is early on a weekend for her. When she woke up, she kissed me, wished me happy Father's Day, and started preparing a special breakfast for the family. For lunch, we went to a little kitschy cafe with Doctor Who-themed sandwiches, and overall it was a good day. My wife is a slave to the calendar and knows when all the important dates fall. She manages everything, from holidays to the kids' activities, with a calendar with an eraser hanging on the side of her kitchen cabinet. All holidays, significant dates, school events, afternoon snacks, etc. are recorded in the calendar. Nothing is ever missed. Except when I miss something, of course. The next year, as my wife was writing dates on the calendar at the end of May, she said, "Hey, Bill, this year, your birthday falls on Father's Day." This wasn't the first time, so I wasn't surprised. "Great! Don't be stingy and don't deceive me by not giving 2 gifts." Katie responded with a laugh, "You will never leave me alone if you are deceived with a gift. This year, I will have to do something special for you." Coming out of the kitchen, I kissed her on the cheek. I hoped she meant something more than the usual annual birthday and Father's Day lovemaking. She would start doing something special for me when we were making regular love, but she would never follow through. Usually it was part of the foreplay, except for these 2 days when she finished the job, so to speak. She did good things for me, without thinking about what she would get in return, on my birthday and Father's Day. I was excited and thought that on the upcoming special day, I would be able to have super rare, unusual sex. The weeks leading up to my big day were strange in our home. My wife behaved strangely. She worked late, snapped at me and the girls over little things, and dressed better for work. She worked as a bakery manager at our local grocery store. She had never worn makeup for work before, but around this time, she started doing it. She also wore a robe over her outfit, which consisted of a white button-down shirt and slacks. She left another button undone, further showing off her ample cleavage. I started to have doubts when she went out without me on the Friday before my birthday. We went out quite often with the main group of married couples, so she rarely went out alone with the girls. If someone was going out for drinks and invited her along, she would tell me the location, and I would meet them. It's not that I was an ogre and didn't let her do things on her own. She always said that she liked spending time better if I was with her. I was pleased, and I thought that because of such little things, we have a pretty strong marriage. For my part, I also did little without her, outside of our social circle. It just worked for us. We weren't party animals or big drinkers. Our idea of a nice Friday night was to hang out on the couch together and watch a couple of movies. That's why I was surprised when I saw her come down the stairs that Friday, dressed to the nines. She was wearing a new short skirt, flesh-colored stockings, and high-heeled shoes. In addition, she had clearly been to a tanning salon and had her hair done. He whistled at her. "Damn, honey. Did I really forget that we are going on a date? Let me get dressed quickly." "No, Bill. I'm meeting my colleagues from work. I thought you might want to order some pizza for yourself since our girls are going out too." I was shocked. She never mentioned it, and it wasn't on her precious calendar. "About? You didn't tell me you had plans. I thought we'd finish our shows tonight." An expression of fear appeared on her beautiful face, but then she caught herself thinking and softened. "Sorry, baby. I was just invited today. I made it clear that I was studying her from head to toe. So you only found out today, and in that hour that you were free from work before me, you bought a new skirt, went to sunbathe, and did your hair?" I was starting to get angry. She lied to me, but I couldn't prove it. I couldn't believe that she could deceive me. It was out of character. She was the epitome of a suburban soccer mom, wife, and mother. Our sex life was great, and we still made love several times a week. She had no reason to cheat on me. She attacked me. I worked for half a day today, and I wanted to look good for a change. Before I could respond, she walked out the door without another word, leaving me wondering what the hell happened. I waited for her, and she returned home shortly before midnight. Her hair was no longer loose, but gathered in a regular ponytail. "Here's your hairstyle." She walked past me without saying a word and went upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running. I could only shake my head and wonder what she had done that required a shower before bed. She didn't come down and say goodnight before bed. I knew something was wrong in my little perfect world, and I wondered how wrong. I work in retail management, so I was at work on Saturday morning. Usually, when I was getting ready for work, I would wake her up and she would kiss me goodbye, half asleep. That morning, I received nothing. And again, I was shocked. When I arrived at the store, I saw Missy waiting at the entrance. Missy was the morning barista at the coffee shop in our big store. She was a pretty red-haired girl whose blue eyes were striking. No matter how happily married I was, I couldn't help but notice her. I've always liked redheads. "Hey, Bill," she called as I approached the entrance. It was still locked, as there was half an hour left before the store opened. The guys on the night crew might have let her in, but, as she told me once, she didn't feel comfortable alone in a store with a bunch of guys. "Good morning, Missy," I said, opening the doors for us. "What happened, Bill? You look like someone killed your cat." "Sorry, I have a lot to worry about today." She looked at me strangely, but ignored it. "Give me a few minutes and I'll pour you a cup of our best." Forcing myself to smile, I said, "Sounds good. See you soon." I closed the doors, while she hurried to prepare the cafe for the morning rush. I knew she would be very busy once the store opened. Mornings have always been difficult for our little cafe. While walking around the floor, I checked the teams that were preparing their departments. In the morning, I always did my rounds. This was not necessary, as I had a very good team of department managers, but it gave me the opportunity to say hello and make small talk. I felt it was important to maintain good relationships with my team members, and I think they appreciated my efforts. The last stop on my walk was a coffee shop where Missy. My big black coffee was already waiting. "Here you go, boss. 1 cup of Megamart's finest coffee." "Thank you, Missy." I put $2 on the counter. "No, Bill. Today it is at the expense of the establishment." "No way, Missy. I pay for everything here. The last thing I need is for someone to get mad and call a corporation to report me." She sighed. "Bill, I would never. I didn't mean you, Missy. But I can't risk it, even for a $2 coffee. You'd be surprised at the things I have to deal with when I deny someone a day off or cut overtime. It's just not smart." "Okay, boss. Fair." I waved goodbye and took a sip of my drink. I'm sure some employees get free coffee from time to time. It is impossible to track this, and who needs it? Too much work for cheap coffee. I can't imagine watching hours of video to find out if everyone paid. For me, everything was different. Being the head of the company was associated with certain risks. Employees lost their temper over the stupidest things. I called HR because I was enforcing parking regulations. Seriously, calling HR because you need to park in your backyard? Ridiculous. The day ended and passed rather unnoticed. What worried me the most was the old lady who stole cat food and bird grain. I just needed a day like this. I was busy enough that I wasn't dwelling on my newfound problems with my wife, but not so busy that I couldn't get everything done on time. When I entered the door of the house, my wife and daughters were already leaving. I was surprised for a moment, but looked at the calendar. "Bye, Dad," each of my daughters said, kissing me on the cheek goodbye. My loving wife said nothing. They were going to a concert with other mothers and daughters. This had been planned for a long time and was on the calendar. But, as usual, I forgot. I was hoping that I would have a chance to talk to Katie and figure out what was going on. I hated not knowing what she did the night before. After not thinking about it all day, I had nothing to do but obsess over it in the evening. I had the opportunity to poke around a little. I checked her email but figured it wouldn't work. And it didn't. Nobody sent any more emails. She had the phone, so I couldn't check her messages and call logs. I went to the hamper to check her clothes from the previous night, but since it was Saturday, she had already done the laundry. I achieved nothing, and after watching the film, went to bed feeling no better than before. I woke up on my birthday, Father's Day, and started the day as usual. After eating a couple of pieces of toast, I drank my coffee and went out onto the terrace to enjoy the morning. It was a gorgeous day. I was enjoying the birds chirping and wondering what was in store for me on my special day. Around 9, I went inside to refill my coffee and was surprised to see my wife and daughters up and packing their lunch. "What's happening?" I asked, wondering why they didn't force me to get ready somewhere. My daughter Jill replied, "We're going to the beach." "About," I said, and went upstairs to get dressed for the lake. When I was putting on the shirt, I heard my daughter Jenny scream, "Bye, Dad. See you later." The door closed, and I looked out the window to see my wife and daughters driving away. I could not believe it. Of course, I didn't expect the girls to remember my birthday. I had to remind them of their mother's birthday and Mother's Day, but I couldn't understand why Katia didn't remember. As I walked down the stairs, I heard my cell phone ring. Hoping that they understood everything and were going to tell me that they would come back for me, I rushed there, but no, it was my mother. "Hello, Billy. Happy birthday and Father's Day." "Thanks, Mom. Does Katie have big plans for you guys today?" "No. A few minutes ago, she took the girls to the beach." "Is it true? This doesn't look like her. I would bet she would cook you a nice breakfast and make this day special for you." "Yes. To be honest, I'm not sure what's going on now. She's been acting strange for weeks now." "Well, don't make a fuss about it. Perhaps she had something special planned for later. It's time for me to go to church." "Love you, Billy." "I love you, Mom." My mother needed to be loved. She was an eternal optimist and loved Katie like her own flesh and blood. He and Katie had visited each other regularly since my dad died a few years ago. Katie wanted to make sure her mom wasn't too lonely. So I was sitting there wondering what the hell was going on with my marriage when the phone rang again. It was my assistant manager, Anne. "Bill, we had an incident at the coffee shop this morning." "What's happened?" "Missy was on the stairs when a customer pushed her. She lost her balance and fell." "My God, is she all right?" "She was taken to St. Alex's Hospital to have an X-ray. Perhaps her arm is broken or something." "Crap. Poor girl. Do you have a shift?" "Yes, we have everything ready. I just didn't want you to take me by surprise tomorrow. Sorry to bother you on Father's Day." "Don't worry about it, Anne. Thank you for calling." I hoped Missy would be okay. I pottered around the house for a while and, deciding they weren't coming back, went to IHOP for breakfast. This turned out to be a mistake for my state of mind. There was a long wait, and there were families everywhere I looked. Happy families celebrating fathers and grandfathers. I left before I started crying. After passing through McDonald's, I received a large breakfast with coffee and orange juice. The pancakes were surprisingly tasty as I sat in the park eating with a plastic fork and knife. I looked at the small lake I used to take my girls boating on when they were little. They loved water. Whether it was swimming, boating, or even fishing, they loved being on the lake. As they got older and almost went to college, they lost interest in fishing. And looking back, I think they lost interest in hanging out with me altogether. In those days, all their walks were with their mother. That's probably right. Shopping for clothes with her father, I'm sure, would have been stressful for a young girl. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no news from his wife. I believe there will be no lunch together. I went to the Doctor Who cafe and ordered a Reuben. Of course, it had a name related to the series, like Revolution of the Daleks Reuben or something equally stupid. Being a 40-year-old man who has no idea what's cool and what's not, I took a photo and signed up on Facebook. I received the usual likes and comments wishing me a happy Father's Day from my friends and colleagues. Strangely, my mother-in-law commented that she thought I was at the beach with my wife and girls. Apparently, my wife was posting beach photos on her Facebook page. After finishing my sandwich, I went to the sports bar near my house. I haven't watched a ball game in a while and decided to drown my sorrows in Miller Lite. The bar was crowded and I wasn't in the mood for it, so I went to the cigar lounge next door and treated myself to a $60 Opus X. Happy birthday to me. I sat down at the table, turned on the Sox game, and a couple of guys playing cards invited me to join them. "I'm Bill," I said, introducing myself to the older gentleman. "I'm Lance, and this is my brother Jerry. Nice to meet you both." They finished the deal and invited me to their little 5-card game. "Help yourself, Bill," Lancey said, kicking the cooler on the floor. I thanked him and pulled out a Miller Lite. "Have no children? Or are they with an ex, with her new man?" Jerry asked with a grin. I frowned. "My wife and girls are on the beach. They don't seem to know what day it is." "That sucks," Lance added. "I don't see my boyfriends often. Both serve." Jerry nodded. "My baby lives in California. My grandson Charlie just turned 2 years old. I'm going there next week." "That's good," I said. Since my girls are already 17 and 18, I started to miss little children. They both nodded in understanding. After some time of small talk, we somehow returned to the topic of my wife. "Do you think she really forgot or is avoiding you on purpose?" Jerry asked. This was a great question and something I was thinking about too. I told them about the last few weeks, up until Friday's problems, and they shook their heads. "She's cheating on you," Lance said. Jerry nodded in agreement. "I can't believe it," I said. But as soon as he said it, I realized that this was the only explanation that made sense, and I tried to believe that it was not so. "Listen, Bill," Lance said. "I've been through this before. Changes in behavior, sudden nights out in sexy clothes, disrespect. I've been there and done that, buddy. My wife had sex with a work colleague a couple of times, and when I found out, I divorced her. The biggest mistake of my life." "What?" I snapped. "She cheated on you. How could divorcing her be a mistake? In my understanding, there were no excuses. Cheating is the end of a marriage, plain and simple. Period. End of story." "Bill, I was broke for 5 years paying her alimony and child support. Every damn day I missed her, loved her on the other side of town in my lonely apartment while she was alone in my house. She may have cheated on me, but I was too much of a weakling to forgive her at the time. It's been 7 years, but we're back together after I pulled my head out of my ass. Now we are happy." "Lord," I said, "giving my body to another man is the biggest insult and disrespect my wife could ever do. If what you say is true, and she is having an affair, then she is either so carried away with her lover that she forgot about my birthday or is deliberately turning me off. Any of these options are unacceptable." Lancey shook his head. "Bill, believe me, if you really love her, find a way to forgive her. You'll be better off in the long run. 40-year-old guys don't get a second chance at love." "Thank you, Lance. You've given me a lot of food for thought. I may have said that, but what I really thought was that he was crazy. There was no way I could forgive her for the affair, and there was no way I could stay married to her." After shaking both men's hands, I wished them well and left. It was almost dinner time when I sat on the couch and scrolled through Facebook. I saw posts from my daughters and wife with photos of their happy day, and it made me even sadder. To hell, I thought. I needed to pull myself together and stop acting like a lost child. My wife forgot my birthday. It happens. She forgot about Father's Day. Who cares? The important thing is that I was sure that she cheated on me on Friday night, and probably many times in the previous weeks. She acted strangely. Her rubbing it in my face should have been her ultimate goal. Well, she finished it well. It was time to prepare for the rest of my life. Then I decided to go to dinner at my favorite restaurant. Of course, I knew it would be a long wait, but that was okay. I had nothing to do. So I showered, dressed in a sports coat and slacks, and went out for a steak. I was sitting at the bar of a steakhouse waiting for a table when an older man sat down in the empty seat next to me. He saw my bottle of champagne with one glass and frowned. Luckily, he didn't say anything and just ordered a martini. When the bartender filled my glass, the man apparently couldn't resist. "Are you celebrating alone, or did I take someone else's place?" "No," I answered. "Everything is fine. I'm here alone." He nodded and sipped his drink. He must have been in sales because he couldn't sit still. "Yes, I'm waiting for my 3 generations of red furies. My wife is helping my daughter who broke her arm today. I think she doesn't handle having to do everything with her left hand very well." He laughed and continued, "You just don't expect your grown children to break bones." I thought those days were behind me. I agreed with his opinion and nodded. "Looks like I'll be doing the cooking myself for a few weeks. My wife will have to take care of Missy and Mia and leave me alone." I raised my head. "What did you say?" Before he could answer, the little girl shouted, "Grandpa!" from across the room and streaked across the crowded bar. A little girl with red curls jumped onto his lap and showered the man with hugs and kisses. A moment later, I heard, "Bill." I turned to see Missy and what I assumed was her mother standing next to me. Her mother looked like herself. With the exception of a few wrinkles around the eyes, they looked exactly the same. "Hello, Missy. How's your hand?" "Everything is fine. I take strong painkillers, so I hardly feel anything, but it hurt like hell when they adjusted it." Missy introduced me to her parents, Jack and Mary, and then her adorable daughter, Mia. "Where is your wife, Bill?" she asked. "Don't know. She took my girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day." "Seriously? On Father's Day? Even worse. Today is also my birthday." "My God. She blew you off on your best day of the year? What's her problem?" I didn't want to get into it and say more than I probably already should, so I shrugged. "Well, forget about her. You must join us," Mary said decisively. Now it became clear what Jack meant when he spoke of the red rage. "I don't—" "Forget it, Bill. You don't want them to turn on you. It won't be nice," Jack said with a grin, which showed his many years of experience in confronting them. "But it's your day, Jack. I don't want to interfere." "Bullshit," he said. "This is our day. Grandfather, you said—" "I know, Pumpkin. I said a bad word. Grandma will punish me later." "Dad," he winked at me as the buzzer sounded for their table. "Pay your own bill, Bill, and meet us at our table." "No excuses," he said in the tone of a drill instructor. He threw a 20 on the counter and left. "Sorry, Bill. My parents can be slow-witted." "Don't worry, Missy. I guess it's better than eating alone." The dinner conversation was light. Bill and I told stories about our daughters growing up, and Mia asked a lot of questions. She giggled constantly at embarrassing stories about her mother as a child. After dinner, my phone rang. I saw that it was my wife, ignored the call, and put the phone on the table. "Your wife?" asked Mary. "Yes." "There's more than you want to say, isn't there?" Missy asked. "I think so, but I have no evidence." "Bill, everyone makes mistakes," Mary said, looking straight at Jack. "Maybe you can find a way to forgive her." Missy raised her head and looked at Mary. I called the waiter over and handed him my credit card. "Well, I ruined your meeting enough. Thank you for inviting me to share your meal with you." "Bill, let me—" "No, Jack. It was an honor to have dinner with you, and especially one of my best employees. This is at my expense. Happy Father's Day." I shook their hands and walked up to the waiter to sign the check. I didn't even have hard evidence that she cheated on me, but I had been in a situation twice already where people told me that I should forgive her. What's wrong with people? My phone rang over and over again, but I ignored it. I pulled into my garage and was greeted by 2 swirling dervish, giving kisses and hugs, apologizing for abandoning me on Father's Day. "Girls, don't worry about it. I don't expect you to remember when my birthday is. It is your birthday today?" Jill screamed. She then ran into the house, screaming at my wife. "Dad, we didn't know." "I'm so sorry," she sobbed into my chest. "You probably hate us." "No, baby. I love you more than life itself. When she suggested we go to the beach last night, we just jumped at the chance. We didn't think—" "Baby, it's okay. Do not worry about it. I'm not angry at you. I didn't tell her I was mad at her mother, but that was my problem, not my daughter's. Let's go into the house. I walked through the kitchen, ignoring my crying wife as my daughters scolded me, and went upstairs to change. I put on shorts and a tank top and returned to the war zone to find my wife sobbing alone. "I'm so sorry," she muttered. I shook my head and went out onto the terrace with a beer and a cigarette. It was a beautiful night, and I was enjoying the peace, thinking about work, and not my wife, when the sliding door opened. "Bill, what's his name?" I interrupted her. I didn't look at her, and she didn't go further onto the terrace. "Bill, what's his name? The man you had sex with on Friday." My anger grew. I heard the door close, but she didn't come out. She didn't bother to deny it. Then I realized that I would soon go to a divorce lawyer. Almost 20 years of marriage have gone to waste. What a stupid woman I married. Then I started thinking about the worst. How long has she been cheating? Was he her first? Did I know him? Were these girls even mine? It's amazing what negative thoughts come into your head when you're treated so poorly. I decided, as part of the divorce, to demand a paternity test for the girls. This would not only be for my peace of mind, but also for Katie's embarrassment. I spent the rest of the night researching divorce laws online and then fell asleep on the couch. This is how I spent my birthday. I woke up at a gloomy 5 in the morning. In the bedroom, I found Katie curled up on my pillow, fast asleep. Funny how peaceful she looked compared to how poorly I slept. Her body was naked. She was so beautiful. It's a shame she's no longer mine. I would miss her body. I grabbed everything I needed and showered as quickly as I could. I managed to escape without waking her, but Jill was waiting for me in the hallway. "How bad is it, Daddy?" I sighed. "Everything is as bad as it can be." "Can you forgive her?" "I mean, she just forgot one day." "Honey, she didn't just forget my birthday or Father's Day. She cheated on me. She was out of breath." "No, Dad, she wouldn't. She did it, and I won't accept it. Think about it. The last few weeks, she's been acting strange. On Friday night, after getting tanned and getting her hair done, she stepped out in a super sexy outfit. It definitely wasn't for me." She shook her head. "Babe, she avoided me all day Saturday and Sunday. She clearly felt either guilt or hatred towards me and did not want to be around me at all. When has she ever taken you to the beach without me? This is always a family excursion. What if this is not a novel? What if it was only one time? Can't you forgive her in one go?" "I doubt that was the case, honey, but look at all her actions. Just once this weekend, did she show that she loves me?" "Dad, didn't you see the look on her face when Grandma called her to ask why she didn't call Grandpa and wish him a happy Father's Day? She dropped the phone and screamed, 'No!' so loud we thought Grandpa was having a heart attack or something. He's fine, Dad." Mom sobbed on her knees until we picked her up and sat her on the sofa. She repeated that she loved you over and over again. To be honest, Jenny wanted to call an ambulance for her. She thought she was going to have a breakdown. We calmed her down and were able to get her to call you. "Jill, I don't know what you expect to hear from me. She doesn't love me. You cannot cheat on your spouse and love him. This is not an act of love. This is selfishness. Love must be selfless. When she became intimate with another man, she threw me away. She hugged me and cried. I'm going to guess it wasn't some random guy she picked up at a bar. She had to flirt or accept his flirting with her. There should have been intimate touching, perhaps kissing and caresses. All this preceded the first sex with him. All these actions that precede sex are a betrayal of your spouse. You cannot be in love with someone and show intimate affection to someone else. Please don't divorce her. I have to go to work. Let's talk later." She entered Jenny's room. I'm sure, of course, to introduce her to what we were talking about. There will be no more secrets in our family. I wondered how long we would be a family. I knew Katie would be too busy at work to try to call or text me, so I had peace most of the day. The only thing that made this day anything but ordinary was filling out corporate forms related to Missy's accident. She should have been compensated for her vacation, and I hoped she wouldn't worry too much. I knew nothing about her personal life. except that she was not married. She came to sign forms and fill out an accident report. I wrote it for her since she was not good with her left hand, and she signed it. "How are things at home?" she asked. "Not good." She didn't deny it when I told her about her affair. "Damn it, Bill, I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't want to know my life story, but I understand how you feel. My ex-husband cheated on me while I was pregnant. I kicked him out before my daughter was born. My mom was furious. She basically called me a quitter." God, I thought it was strange last night when your mom mentioned forgiving my wife. She looked straight at your father when she said this. Yes, I noticed that too. I'm not sure who exactly, but it makes me think one of them cheated. I'm sorry. It's not worth it. They seem to be happy, so they are free to live as they please. I prefer never to trust deceivers. Me too, I said firmly. Katie wasn't home when I came home from work. She was probably busy with her stallion, and I got angry. Back in the car, I drove 2 miles to her grocery store. I saw her car in the parking lot, and, to my surprise, she was sitting in it with a young man. When I stopped in front of her car, she noticed me, and I saw her scream, "No!" She opened the door, but I left. If she was going to cheat on me, he could take her. I've had enough. Arriving home, I ran upstairs to pack my bag. I planned to stay in a hotel until I found an apartment. Before I knew it, Jenny and Jill were crying and begging me to stay. "I'm really sorry, girls, but your mom was just about to cheat on me when I caught her. She was in a car with some guy when I pulled up next to her. Dad, it must be a mistake. Girls, I know what I saw. There was a man in her car. Why would she stay after work and keep a man in the car if she had no intention of taking him somewhere? She can't say they were just having lunch. There is no innocent explanation for her ending up in the back parking lot after work with a man in the car." "Dad, please don't break up our family," Jenny sobbed. "Honey, your mother broke up our family. It is not my fault." Pulling them into a group hug, I kissed them on the cheeks. "I love you, girls. I will be in touch with you every day." I left them crying in the bedroom and went to the garage. As I pulled out of the garage, I was nearly run over by Katie, running like a bat out of hell. I shook my head and drove on. The next week was nothing short of pure hell. I refused to answer my wife's calls, and for the first 3 days, she called me every hour for an hour. She must have taken a week off because she couldn't make calls from the shop floor and had to be on the floor all day. She left countless messages begging me to call her. I deleted every one of them. After those 3 days, my mother, mother-in-law, both daughters, and sister Katie begged me to talk to her. They all said it wasn't as bad as I thought, but every time I asked them if she cheated on me, they wouldn't answer. They all knew it was. They just didn't admit it. I stopped answering everyone's calls. I told my daughters that I would talk to them, but their mother should not be mentioned. I had to hang up twice before they believed I was serious. At the end of the week, I met with a lawyer. I wanted a simple division of property in half. She could own the house until the girls moved out. Then we would sell it. The lawyer said I could get more than half of the proceeds on the house because my down payment and monthly payment were more than Katie's. But I told him it needed to be split equally. I thought alimony or maintenance was a foregone conclusion, but it turns out that since my wife makes enough money to support herself, I won't have to pay her anything. This was the best news I've had in a long time. I won't have to pay her to have sex with her lover. The only problem was that I had no proof of her cheating. The judge could not allow this and reduce the case to irreconcilable differences, and I would have to prove that we were trying to improve the relationship. I would take the risk. As my lawyer prepared to file for divorce, life went on. There was no forced mediation or consultation. There will be no lawsuits for alienation of affection. There wouldn't be a long, drawn-out fight. The division was fair, and any judge could be convinced of this, even with a blindfold. But nothing is that simple. What she could do was fight. When she was handed the documents, she again unleashed a full barrage of family attacks on me. It turned out that she had only been with that guy once, that Friday before my birthday, or that's what she led everyone to believe happened. I was branded a bad guy because I didn't let her explain. as if any explanation would be acceptable. My mother basically called me a wimp because I didn't fight for my marriage. My mother-in-law told me that we are even because I also broke my vow by not staying with her during the worst times. My daughters told me that I should stay in the family because our divorce would scar them for life. It was surreal. I didn't do anything wrong, but I was blamed for the divorce. Shit hit the fan when I asked my daughters to give me saliva for DNA testing. They refused until I lied to them and told them it was a court order. Kathy wrote me a letter which was mailed to my store. I read it, and it said that she was hooked on the guy's attention to her. I say guy because the bastard was only 21 years old. They only had sex once, in the backseat of his car, and sexually he wasn't worth a damn. As if being a loser was supposed to make everything better. She also said that when I caught her in the car with that guy, she was going to tell him in private to never talk to her again. It didn't matter. She cheated on me once, and once was enough. The best part is that since she gave me the letter, I did not have to prove the fact of infidelity in the divorce. She did it herself. This meant that I wouldn't have to present irreconcilable differences and prove that we were trying to improve the relationship. Karma was finally on my side. She tried to fight for a divorce, but when the judge saw the terms I proposed and her letter confirming the infidelity, he approved it. I was supposed to get a divorce in 60 days. And so, I was left alone on the island of devastation. Because I refused to talk to her, I was labeled immature and an asshole. Things got so bad that my mother and my daughters stopped talking to me. It hurt, but I was on the side of righteousness, and if they didn't like it, well, too bad. I called my daughters every 2 days. They never responded, but I left voicemails telling them what was going on with me and asking them what was going on in their lives. I didn't let them blame me for not talking to them. I still continued to make every effort and contact them, whether they wanted it or not. One thing that changed was that I started having coffee with Missy on Sundays. It all started innocently enough when we ran into each other at a local coffee shop. She and Mia lived next door and were out for a walk. I invited them to join me and told her about my suffering while Mia watched cartoons on my iPad. "I'm sure your daughters will come to their senses, Bill," she said. "They are young and impressionable and live with your wife." It is unknown what nonsense she put into their heads. I hope you're right. I just hope they haven't gone too far. I miss them like hell. The next week, I was walking into the same store at the same time and reading when I heard, "Hello, stranger." I smiled and invited them to join me again. "Is this normal for you, or are you stalking me?" She smiled. "No, I live nearby, and on Sunday morning I like to have a cup of coffee and read. It's kind of lonely at home, so I came here." She took a sip from her cup, and we chatted about the area until we parted ways. It wasn't a conscious decision to meet every Sunday, but that's what we did. I enjoyed her company, and little Mia was simply adorable. The day the divorce became final, I knocked on the front door of my old house. My wife answered, and it was clear that she was crying. She didn't say a word, just invited me in. Are the girls at home?" I asked. "They are watching a musical at school. I know why you're here. I expected you to come today." "Is it true?" I grinned. "You waited until it was too late to stop it, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "I knew you would beg and plead and tug at my heart, trying to make peace, and I couldn't let that happen. You broke my heart, and I will never forgive you." "Damn it, Bill. This happened once. One bad mistake. Why couldn't you forgive me? Why couldn't you find a way to stay with me? Didn't you love me as much as I loved you all these years?" I laughed. "Did you love me when you were flirting with your asshole? Did you love me when you had sex with him? Did you love me when you avoided me all weekend and left me alone on my birthday? If this is your idea of love, then you can't be helped." "I never wanted this to happen," she sobbed. "And I never wanted a cheater for my wife, but here we are." She was out of breath and started talking until I interrupted her. "Katie, you not only broke my heart, but you also turned my mother and my daughters against me. I will never forgive you for this. It's your fault for being unreasonable." I got angry. "If you don't make my mother and my daughters apologize to me and make things right, I will tell every man you meet that you are an available woman and a cheater." I will make sure that I ruin all your relationships in the future because you ruined mine. I don't need anyone else. Incorrect answer. I guess I'll just have to find other ways to hurt you and embarrass you. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my hand. It is not my fault. You can't blame me. Oh no. Have I cheated on you? I don't think so. You know what really sucks? You allow your daughters to grow up believing that cheating on their husbands is acceptable. Because of your behavior, they enter adulthood believing that you are a saint and I'm a sinner, and that's okay because it was just one time. Well, to hell with him. I'm not going to fall down just because some asshole made you feel sexy. I pulled her hand away from mine. Rot in hell for leaving our marriage. Just fucking decompose. I left her crying after me and was not upset about it. A few weeks later, Missy knocked on my office door. Do you have a minute, Bill? Of course. Come in. I frowned as she closed the door, expecting something bad to happen. Bill, does the company have a rule prohibiting dating other employees? I hated that she was asking me this. I was hoping I could ask her out. Looks like I'm late. No, we have a strong sexual harassment policy. This policy protects almost anything that could be damaged by a failed coworker relationship. And if two people can't work together after a breakup, it's their fault, not the company's. Fine. This is what I was hoping for, she said, placing a folded piece of paper on my desk. What is this? I asked. My address and phone number. I'm waiting for you tomorrow night for dinner. Mia will join us. With a smile, I agreed. Fine. You're a good man, Bill. You deserve to be happy, and I want to give you a second chance at happiness. She jumped out of my office with a cute spring in her step, and I was looking forward to our dinner. Hi, it's Dad. I hope you and your sister are doing well. I'm doing business as usual, except the woman at work invited me to dinner. Well, anyway, I love you and miss you. Please call me soon. Bye. I knew this message would cause some problems, but I didn't care. I needed to move on, and I was thrilled that Missy took that step the way she did. Missy was a beautiful woman with an even more beautiful personality. Her daughter was charming and lovely, and I had already met her parents. I felt like I was finally ahead in the game. Only 15 minutes had passed when Katie texted me, I can't believe you're dating already. You're a real bastard. I laughed when I read this. I didn't realize how wrong she was before. To think that I would sit and worry about her was crazy. Maybe some guys would mourn the loss of their marriage because their wife cheated, but that wasn't me. At 41, I was young enough to find love again. Hell, I was young enough to have more kids if I wanted. There was a lot to think about. Missy was in her 30s and might want to have more children in the future. I knew it was too early to think about it, but as a single mother, these things were probably at the top of Missy's list of potential suitors. I think she was looking for a husband, not a toy. Although I, of course, didn't mind becoming her toy. I haven't had sex for several months. The next evening, I showered and shaved after work and got dressed as usual. I looked in the mirror and was not surprised by what I saw. I was in good shape, with no spare tires or favorite creases. I had a full head of brown hair, with no gray showing yet. I had a great job that paid well, and I had money in the bank. I considered myself a fair catch for any woman, let alone one as young as Missy. Then I realized that I had no idea how to date someone. When you are married, you are always together and know everything about each other. There was no problem holding hands or kissing. When you got home after the party, you knew there was going to be sex. There was comfort in this status quo. God. I had to relearn how to have sex. I knew every point on my ex-wife's body that gave her pleasure. Knew how, knew what and when she wanted. I just had to hope that the next woman I had sex with liked the same thing or at least communicated well. I was afraid I wasn't ready to date yet and regretted jumping into the dating scene so quickly. I knocked on the door of her townhouse with a bottle of wine, flowers, and a stuffed animal. I thought it wouldn't hurt to be in Mia's good standing. When she opened the door, I was shocked by what I saw. Her curly red hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was wearing the perfect amount of makeup. She was dressed in a loose sundress that reached about 10 centimeters above her knees, showing off her beautiful legs. She was barefoot, and her toes were painted a hot pink to match her nails. She laughed. "Did I pass the test?" "God, yes," I said before I could answer. She laughed even harder and took the flowers and wine from me. "Mia is watching TV. Go and say hello. She will like the bear." She went into the kitchen and I knelt down next to Mia. "Hello, honey. I brought you a teddy bear." She looked at me warily and then lit up the room with her smile. She stretched out her hands to the bear and ran to show him Missy as soon as I took it in my hands. It brought back good memories of Jenny and Jill at the same age. I realized how long it had been since I had spoken to them, and I missed them even more. "What's happened?" Missy asked, breaking me out of my thoughts. I forced myself to smile. "Nothing. Just thinking about my daughters when they were Mia's age." "Is it really that bad now?" she asked. "They still don't talk to me. Katie has turned them against me, and I can't change their minds. But I still try. I leave them messages every other day and don't stop. I'm sorry, Bill. I know this is terrible for you." "Every day. I know they are listening to my messages. I told them about our date today, and Katie texted me that I was an asshole for getting to the point so quickly. I'm sorry, but it's not too fast, is it?" She bit her lip and looked so damn cute. "Perhaps," I answered honestly, "but I'm happy to find out with you." She smiled and took my hand. "The supper is ready. I hope you like pasta with meat sauce." "Sounds great." "About. I have garlic bread too, so you should be prepared to deal with that later when we're making out on the couch." Mia giggled, and I stood there in shock that Missy was so unceremonious. She saw my discomfort. "Bill, we're both adults, and I've known you for 3 years. I know what kind of person you are, and it doesn't take much to get to know you to realize that I really like you. You're about to become a hot commodity, and I want to make my claims known early." "Hot item?" I asked. "Yes. You have no idea how much noise the news of your divorce caused in the store. Darling, your appearance on the market, so to speak, has attracted the attention of many unmarried ladies. You're a handsome man in good shape, you're smart, stable, and we all know how you feel about fidelity." I felt pretty good when I sat down at her table. "So, I'm getting in line early?" she finished. I took her hand and squeezed it. "I like you too." Mia, not wanting to be left out, said, "Sketty is my favorite." "I like scatty too." "The thinner the better," I said. Seeing a jar of Parmesan cheese on the table, I added, "And you must have some really stinky cheese." She giggled. "This is not stinky cheese. This is Parm, stinky cheese," I said, raising the jar to my nose and imagining that it was the most terrible smell in the world. "Wow, this is a very smelly cheese." Missy shook her head as I handed the jar to Mia. She sniffed it, shrugged, and poured a generous amount over the spaghetti. We carried on light conversation over dinner. I asked about Mia's preschool class and her friends. She chirped away without a problem, telling me every detail she could remember. I enjoyed the conversation. After a while, I realized that Missy was silent. She smiled widely and simply watched as her daughter and I exchanged a few words. Finally, she started collecting the plates, and I said, "Let me help." "Oh no, she hasn't told you about her favorite TV shows yet." She laughed as Mia started telling me about all the best kids' shows. After putting Mia to bed, Missy came back and sat next to me on the couch. I handed her a glass of wine, and she sighed with satisfaction, throwing her feet up on the ottoman. I love being a mom, but sometimes it's the best part of the day for me. Instinctively, I hugged her. When she pressed herself against me, I said, "It's worse with two." "No doubt. Do you think your girls will come to their senses?" "I hope so," I answered thoughtfully. "Now I'm making every effort, but for them, it's still raw." She turned and kissed me on the cheek. "You are a great father. Just don't give up fighting for them." She put down her glass and sat back down. "Bill, I already told you that I really like you, and I'm too old to play the will we or won't we game. I would like to continue dating you, and that includes inviting you into my bedroom." I was about to tell her that we shouldn't do this, but she raised her finger. I understand that you want to be a gentleman and all that, but it's not necessary. What I'm saying is that I don't want to be your buddy or friend with benefits. I warn you right away that I am looking for an exclusive relationship. I need to think about my daughter, and frankly, she needs a dad just as much as I need a husband. I tried to speak again, but again I was rebuffed. Such a conversation usually ends with the guy picking up and running away. I don't think you are, but I'm giving you a way out. If you want to sow oats and experience a lonely life, I'm not your girl. If you want to see if we have a chance for a long life, then I'm your woman. Wow, I said. Did you prepare this speech, or was it done at random? She frowned, misinterpreting my feelings. Missy, like you said, we've known each other in a working relationship for 3 years. The last few weeks of drinking coffee together have been very enjoyable. I'm a family man, that's all I've ever been. I can't imagine being single, and the thought of dating scares me to death. If my wife could have resisted cheating, I would still be a happy married family man. No, I don't want to play on this field. She smiled and took my hand. I continued, You are beautiful, smart, and cook excellent spaghetti. She laughed and playfully slapped me on the shoulder. I would like to be your boyfriend. Consider me a part of creating something good for all of us, including your little girl. That evening, we didn't make love. As much as I wanted to take her right there on her couch, I felt it was best not to rush things. She practically confessed her love to me and got very excited. But I decided that taking my time would be better for my comfort. I received a gift from the gods when I received an application for a manager position. I never found out the name of the punk who ruined my marriage, so I couldn't take revenge on him. But when he showed up for an interview for the position of night manager, I recognized him immediately. He would never recognize me, but he might know my name, so I asked Anne to interview him and hire him. On his second night on the job, I waited in the parking lot for him to start his shift. I walked up to his 1990s car and put a 40-inch TV, which I had bought from a competitor, on the back seat. We were selling the same model, and I accidentally found out that one of them was conveniently lying around in the warehouse. In the morning, I timed my arrival to coincide with the end of his shift. I walked him to the car, chatting along the way about what he thought about his team of guys. As we approached the car, I noticed the TV in the back seat and pretended to be shocked. Jeff, did you buy a TV before your shift? We haven't opened yet. No, Bill, it's not I don't know how he got there. Jeff, I think we need to go back to the store. Bill, you have to believe me. Check the cameras. I shook my head. Fine. Bring the TV. We went back to the store and the kid was scared to death. I thought he was going to cry at some point. We didn't have night security because since the store was closed at night and had a night crew working there, we didn't need it. We had cameras everywhere, and there was only one place where the cameras could be turned off. Only the managers had the key to this room. There was a camera pointed at the door to the room, but it was located above the doorway to the stairwell. I mentioned this to security several years ago, but they never fixed the problem. Then I easily opened the door to the stairwell, climbed up and closed the camera with a piece of black electrical tape. I then disabled the security camera system. Well, technically, I disabled the computer that controlled the system. When I brought him into the room and he saw that the computer was not working, he panicked and continued to plead his innocence while I, according to the rules, called the police. When all was said and done, the guy was convicted of a minor crime and received no prison time. I was hoping it would get a couple of months, but it wasn't an expensive enough TV. He had to do a bunch of community service and pay a fine, which oddly enough turned out to be more than I paid for the TV. With such a crime on his record, he will also have a hard time finding a job in retail. It made me happier, but it still wasn't worth the risk I took. True, the corporation has increased the level of security by installing cameras in the parking lot. They have been needed for a long time. He was so stupid that he never realized that I did it. He tried to accuse the team of setting him up, but could not prove anything. They didn't miss him when I fired him. On a good Saturday morning, a week after my dinner with Missy, I saw her waiting in the car to warm up. After I parked next to her, she met me at the door and greeted me with a nice kiss. Are we still having dinner today? She asked. Absolutely. Fine. I have something special that I'm preparing for us. You won't want to miss this? I wouldn't want to... Is this the tramp? Katie asked from behind me, interrupting me. Sorry? Exclaimed Missy. Her claws were completely unclenched. Katie, what do you need? I asked irritably. I tried to call you. Have you blocked my number? Yes. After your 30 messages about how I'm a bastard for continuing to live, I've had enough. What do you want? I want to talk about girls. We need to sort out the college. They can go wherever they want. I took care of the money for them. I would like to participate, but since you turned them against me, they don't want to talk to me. They're afraid you won't pay for school. Of course, I will pay for it. I still love them, even if you cheated on me and I lost them in the divorce. Missy laughed. Katie looked at her. It's not my fault that you couldn't forgive me for one mistake. About one miss? It only happened once because you weren't careful. I dealt with you right away. Doesn't matter. You should still be my husband. We should still be a family. You're delusional. You cost me my marriage, my family, my daughters, and my mother. I swear to you, you better never date a man if I find out about this. You'll never see a second date. Nobody wants to date a woman who cheats, unless they know your reputation and are looking for easy sex. I turned and walked towards the store. Hearing screams behind me, I turned around and saw Missy pinning Katie's back against the car, pointing her finger in her face. Stay away from my man, bitch. You threw it away, and I picked it up. I rushed back and pulled her away. Stop, Missy. She's not worth the trouble. You heard me, bitch, she shouted to Katie before turning and walking towards the store. Please go away, Katie. It's over between us, and it's your fault. Yours and only yours. And he left her sobbing near the cars. Running to catch up with my out-of-breath Missy, I took her hand. She raised her head and smiled at me, slowing down. Forgive me, Bill. Perhaps I was too territorial. Oh, no. I like it when women fight over me in the parking lot. This is very good for my ego. We laughed and went inside to do some work. Later that morning, my mom called me. When I answered, she muttered, Billy, She didn't finish, and I heard a soft thud, but the call didn't end. I hung up and called back, but there was no answer. I called 911 and asked for an ambulance to be sent to her house, but was told that the call had already come from her house. I feared the worst and asked Anne to cover me as I had to go. She understood, and as I ran through the store, I rushed past Missy, who was screaming after me. I ignored her and ran straight to my car. When I got to my mother's house, the ambulance was already leaving, and I followed it. When I approached the opening back doors, I discovered that she had died before the ambulance arrived at the hospital. She must have passed out while we were talking on the phone. I cried as I sat in the lobby of the emergency room. I sat there alone and thought about the last word my mother said to me. What did she want to say? Maybe it was, I have a problem, I'm having a heart attack, I'm really sorry. My phone rang, and it was Missy. Hi, my mom just died. Oh, Bill, I am so sorry. Yes, thank you. I'm afraid I won't be in good company tonight. No, I'll be with you. If you need me, please let me come. Okay, yes, I said. I didn't want to be alone, and I was glad that she was ready to be with me. I'm already on my way to your house. Meet me there after you leave. Fine. See you soon. I ended the call and went out to my car. Instead of going home, I went to my old house. I needed to tell my girls if they wanted to see me or not. As I pulled up to the house, I saw both girls' cars in the driveway and sighed. I never imagined that the first words we would say to each other would be such news. I didn't care that I didn't live there anymore. I entered the code into the garage door opener and went inside. Katie's car wasn't there, and I was glad about that. I don't think I was in the right state of mind to see her. The living room and kitchen were empty, so I went upstairs to the bedrooms. Dad, Jill shouted as I entered her room. What do you need? Jenny shouted, coming in after me. Have you come to beg? Well, you can go to, Grandma had a heart attack and died this morning, I said, interrupting her. They both gasped. I just thought I should tell you this in person. Now I'm going to hell. When I left, I closed the door behind me. I could hear Jenny yelling for me to wait, but I hurried to my car and drove away. I drove to the small lake where the girls and I had spent so much happy time. It was too cold for the boats, but the water had already begun to thaw, and it was very calm. Sitting down on a picnic bench, I started crying again. This time I cried not only for my mother, but also for the loss of my daughters. The rage in Jenny's voice told me that I was not needed in her life. She didn't need to tell me to go to hell. Her tone said it all for her. I wondered if I had made a mistake somewhere along the way. Not with Katie, but with the girls. What did I do that was wrong to make them hate me so much? It was Katie who destroyed our marriage. Why couldn't my daughters understand this? I don't know how long I sat there, but I heard someone approach. I turned around, and it was Katie and the girls. "How did you find me here?" I asked, turning to look at the lake again. "You haven't turned off syncing for our Find My Phone app," Katie said. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mom." "Yes?" I spat. "Do you regret her death, or that you turned her against me and she died without our reconciliation?" She didn't say anything. "Leave me alone. I can't deal with your crap right now," I continued. "I will never forgive you for what you did to me." Our last words were her words that she would no longer talk to me until I wised up and stopped the divorce. She didn't even tell me she loved me when she dropped the phone. "I'm so sorry, Bill, for all." I heard her leave, and Jenny said, "Dad, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for being bitches." I turned around and they both rushed to hug me. We cried in each other's arms for what seemed like an eternity. "It's not my fault, girls. Why can't you understand that what your mother did is the reason we are no longer together?" "We're very sorry, Dad," Jill said. "We just thought you should forgive her. She loves you, it's so obvious." "Not enough to be faithful to me, Jill." "I'm sorry, girls. I'm really sorry." We cuddled some more as Katie watched from the warmth of her car. "Girls, I need you so much. You'll be leaving for college soon, and I'll miss you. We are wasting so much time." "We understand, Dad," Jenny said. "We won't shut you out anymore," Jill added. "I wish your grandmother had the opportunity to do the same. Dad, can we go with you? We haven't seen your new home yet. Maybe we could buy pizza." "Of course, tell Mom and let's go." When I pulled up to my driveway, I saw Missy's car. I forgot that she was coming. "Girls, it looks like you are going to meet Missy." "Is she your girlfriend?" they asked in unison, making me laugh. "Yes, well, that is, we just started dating." "Look how red he is, Jenny. This is so cute." They jumped out of the car, and in the blink of an eye, they were at the car door with Missy. They bombarded her with questions, and I saw that Missy doesn't understand what's happening. "Girls, leave her alone. Come inside and I'll introduce you all." They kissed me on the cheek and galloped into my garage as I walked over to a shocked Missy. "Sorry about that," I said as she opened her door. She smiled brightly and kissed my cheek. "Your daughters?" Let's go. I'll officially introduce you." "I wish I knew better, honey." I probably looked terrible. Laughing, I said, "Are you okay? They'll like you." "Jenny, Jill? I'd like to introduce you to Missy." They grouped and hugged her. Jenny, as usual, said cheekily, "You're super sexy." Jill jumped up. "Well done, Dad." Missy laughed, and I was too shocked to say anything. "Hey, let's take a quick look around the house, and then I need to take care of some service stuff for Grandma." "Bill, I'll order some pizzas while you show them around." "Sounds good, honey." You are reading my mind. "Oh!" the girls cooed. I shook my head, and Missy smiled. I decided that I would wait until the next morning to call and report my mother. On Monday, I will publish an obituary in the newspaper, and after visiting the funeral home on Sunday, I will post funeral information on Facebook. After dinner, we sat for several hours, telling Missy stories about my mom. My girls, not so innocently, added a few embarrassing stories about me for Missy's amusement. It's not my fault the pier was wet and I fell into the lake, I swear. Before I had time to look back, It was already past 10. Girls, time has escaped me, and it's already late. They frowned. Can we stay the night? I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet. I'll tell you what. I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll go have breakfast, okay? If you don't mind, I could also use some help deciding what to do with Grandma's things. Of course, Dad. We will help with everything you need. Thank you. Missy, do you want to go for a ride? Or do you need to go back home to Mia? She is with my parents now. Jill jumped up. Who is Mia? Mia is my 4-year-old daughter. They both squealed and Jenny said, "Oh my God, I can't wait to meet her." Missy laughed at their excitement and said, "Someday soon, I promise." Okay, let's go. They're great girls, Missy said as we sat on the couch shortly after returning to my house. I'm glad you were able to get back together with them. I sighed. Me too. I just wish it didn't require my mom to die. She snuggled up to me and I fell asleep, hugging her. When I woke up in the morning, she covered us with a blanket and was still clinging to me. I missed being so close to someone. Kissing her on the top of her head, I said, "Sorry I fell asleep on you." She moaned, stretching. "It's okay, baby. You had a very emotional day. Would you like to join me and the girls for breakfast?" "Only if I can take Mia with me. My parents have plans for this morning." "Certainly. My daughters will love it. Since we needed to pick up Mia, I asked my daughters to meet us at IHOP. As I walked in holding Mia's hand, my girls rushed towards her. In a matter of seconds, Mia was in their arms. They were spinning in the air, and then they tickled her and showered her with kisses. She squealed and giggled the entire time with a huge smile, to the point of screaming, "I need to pee!" The girls said in unison, "We'll take her," and galloped off to the toilet. "I don't know, Missy. Do you think they'll get along?" I grinned. She playfully slapped me on the shoulder and kissed my cheek. "I hope they get along for many years," she said. She was a pretty long-term thinker, and technically, we were only on one date. It was a little unnerving, but I was sure that I would survive this feeling. While we ate, Mia and my daughters chatted nonstop about everything under the sun. From my observations, it was clear that Mia loves to talk. And not only about herself, she asked so many questions about my daughters' lives that I think even my girls were surprised. My daughters were neighborhood nannies, so interacting with small children was their strong suit. They knew all the hot children's shows and movies, and Mia ate out of the palm of their hand. They also got along well with Missy. There was no hostility or any expression of anger when I met her, which shocked me. They refused to talk to me for months after my divorce, but once they met my new girlfriend, they became best friends. I didn't understand this, and I'll have to see if I can get some explanation from the girls about this. After dozens of phone calls, the beginning of the long process of cleaning out my mom's house, and a visit to the funeral home, I was finally able to sit back and relax. The girls returned to my house for dinner, and Missy and Mia went on their way after breakfast. Missy decided it would be too emotional for us and wanted to avoid the discomfort of Mia asking questions about everything while we were clearing out my mom's house. "Dad, you're in love with Missy?" Jenny asked, unexpectedly. We only saw each other a couple of times outside of work. It's too early to call it love." "Okay, Dad," Jill said, as if I were an idiot. "Have you seen those good old cartoons where the girls' eyes flutter and they cup their hands on their cheeks, looking at their prince?" I nodded, taking a bite of pizza. "Well, she practically has hearts flying around her head when she looks at you and bats her eyes," Jill said. Before I could deny that she loved me, they looked at each other, turned to me and said, "We like her." I went from being happy to see my daughters to being angry. Throwing my piece onto the plate, I wiped my hands and went to the sink. Leaning against the counter, facing away from them, I tried to calm down. "Dad?" Jenny asked. "Girls, how could you break my heart for so long and now you sit and say that you like my girlfriend? What have I done to you to make you think it's okay to shut yourself out from me? Ignore me. Tell me to go to hell when I see you for the first time in a while. What have I done? Do you know how many times I cried after leaving you a message, knowing that you didn't care what you received? Mom made us." "What?" I exclaimed. Jill replied, "It started when Mom told us that if you think you're losing us too, you'll come back to her, and we'll be a family again. We're so sorry." I turned around and Jenny jumped up to hug me when she saw a tear on my cheek. "Dad, forgive us. After that didn't work, she told us that you left us and weren't going to pay for college because we wanted you to stay with her. She told us that the messages you left were just a ploy for you to use in the divorce, making it seem like you were a good guy for the benefit of the judge. And you believed it? Dad, how would you react, sitting with her day after day and listening to her defend her one-time mistake against 20 years of love? We thought you were being unreasonable." "And I was? Would you let your boyfriend cheat on you?" I have not received a reply. "Where is the line?" I asked decisively. "Once? 2? 5? Answer me." They started crying and we hugged. Their hug immediately calmed me down and I felt terrible. "I'm so sorry, girls. I missed you so much." After each of them expressed their love for me, I said, "It's time to take you home. You have to go to school tomorrow. Don't forget to ask your mom to tell them about the wake and funeral. You will need some free time this week." We hugged again, and I watched them drive away with a warm heart. I looked up at the sky and said, "You didn't have to leave to give me the girls back, Mom, but thank you. I'll miss you." Funerals are difficult for me because I always felt awkward sitting in the hall with a dead body. Mom's wake was especially difficult. During the day, I walked up to the coffin several times and looked at her. She looked calm. I was glad that she would see my father again. He died a few years earlier from cancer. He wanted a different service, without a wake. He, like me, thought it was strange for people to communicate with a corpse. Mom has already planned everything. I think as people get older, they think about these things. She even chose a coffin. All I had to do was set the time, and was set day and arrange the small details of the hall arrangement and service. I was glad she did it. I was standing at the front of the room talking to one of her friends when Katie and my girls walked in. My daughters hugged me warmly and tearfully, and Katie thankfully left me alone. After reading the prayer, Katie put something in the coffin and walked to the end of the hall, where she sat alone. I looked at what she put in there, and it was a photo of Katie and I hugging my mom. She held each of our babies in her arms and had a smile a mile wide on her face. Taking the photo she had tucked to her side, I placed it reverently next to her hands. It was the first time I cried that day. Later, the priest wanted to start a prayer ministry. Katie did not leave her place at the end of the hall. Everyone was attracted to her. You couldn't be part of a family as long as she was married and not get to know the people, and they all loved her. According to protocol, immediate family members were to sit in the first row of chairs. My girls sat to my right, and Misty sat to my left, but it didn't feel right. I stood up and turned around. In the back of the hall, I saw Katie, who was wiping tears from her eyes. It seemed to me that this was wrong. My mother wouldn't want this. Kathy was her daughter, as much as she was my wife. Then he walked to the end of the hall. As everyone sat waiting for the service to begin, I was noticed, and all eyes turned to me. I extended my hand to Katie. "Come forward. You don't have to hide here." She started sobbing and hugged me. She whispered, "Thank you," when she let me go. We walked to the front of the room, and my Uncle John gave her his seat, which was next to my daughter. "You're a good man, Bill," she whispered, Missy kissing me on the cheek. It was the strangest feeling I've ever had while holding Missy by the hand when my ex-wife was just a couple of steps away from me. I prayed that I would not regret it later and not have problems with them. The day was ending, and I was saying goodbye to the last visitors when Katie came up to me. Since Missy was next to me, I wondered what Katie would do. I hoped she wouldn't start a fight out of respect for my mother. "Bill, thank you for inviting me into the family today. This means more than you can imagine. She loved you like a daughter, that was right. That reminds me. If you want, you can ride in the limousine with us and the girls tomorrow." She hugged me and cried. I felt like a hand Missy. She touched my lower back in a possessive manner, and I began to fear that a fight would break out. "Well," said Katie, breaking the hug, "if you don't want anything from me, I'll go home. I shook my head in denial and she smiled briefly at Missy. I'm glad you're here for him. You may not know this, but he was his mother's son. Soon it will be very difficult for him that she's no longer there. With these words, she turned and left the room. Missy hugged me from the side and said, "Let's take you home." I threw my keys in the locker and walked into the kitchen, glad the day was over. Missy sat down at the table and accepted a cold beer from me. I think everything with Katie went better than you expected. You handled it well, she said as I enjoyed my cold Sam Adams. Yes, I'm glad. I really expected her to start something with you. Well, I'm sure the girls helped with this. We just need to get through tomorrow and everything will be fine. I hope she was right. I don't know why I had this uneasy feeling that Katie wouldn't cope with Missy. I guess I'm just paranoid. Will you stay with me tonight? I asked. She smiled and took my hand. You can't kick me out even if you try. We didn't make love, but she lay with me in a spoon and it was the best dream since the divorce. You're watching me like a hawk. I'm not going to abuse your trust and start a fight, Katie said as we waited for the prayer to begin. I know that, I lied. It's just inconvenient for me. She snorted. What do you think it's like for me? I'm an outcast here. I frowned. Nobody thinks of you that way, especially not today. I'm really sorry, Bill. I wish I could make sure this never happened. I would like... She started crying and hurried to the bathroom. We're all having a hard time, Bill, my mother's friend Jean said, patting me on the shoulder. Your mother was a wonderful woman, and we will all miss her. I kissed her on the cheek and thanked her, glad that Katie had my mom as cover for her outburst of tears. After the funeral, we were seated at my mother's favorite Polish restaurant for lunch. The room was packed, and Katie looked awkward as she looked for an empty seat. Once again, I walked up to her and led her by the hand to the table where I was sitting with Missy and my daughters. Katie, we will always be a family, regardless of the divorce. Wherever we sit, you will always be welcome. A tear rolled down her cheek as she sat and thanked me. I don't know when I came to terms with it, but I felt like I had finally forgotten about the pain she caused. Life went on. The girls went to college and talked to me on Skype every week. Missy and I are still together, and I'm close to popping the question. Katie and I infrequently. We communicate, but we are cordial. She also lives further, dating the divorced father of a friend of one of the girls. He's a good guy. I hope everything works out for them. Some will say that I should have forgiven her for a one-time mistake, but I just can't do that. This may make me a bad guy in some people's minds, but I can live with myself. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.